One of these is the maxed out balls to the wall PS5 Pro version of GT7. The other is the regular version, and I don't need to tell you which is which, right? It's night and day, I mean, come on, look at this. Wait, which file am I playing? That one's the OG version, this is the Pro version with ray tracing and PSSR. Yep, no mix up here. On the left is the OG PS5 and the right is the Pro after the Pro patch. To be fair, the sky's a little clearer, less clouds, and there might even be an extra blade of grass or two. But did I really drop the GDP of a small island nation to buy a Pro just for this? Ugh, let's find out. First up, I need to briefly speak to the 5 people watching this on a large TV in 4K. You will see some color banding, especially in the sky. This is not actually in the game. You can thank Elgato and Avermedia for this. Both of them have HDMI 2.1 capture cards that they'll happily take your hard-earned money for. Problem is, neither of them really work properly. I need to use these cards to capture 120Hz 4K video for these comparisons, but as soon as I'm done, I'm ripping them both out. Because none of them can actually do what they say they can do on the tin. So just remember that color banding is an artifact of how I captured this content. Everything else though, that's on PD and Sony. Those two have been cooking, but like corn and broccoli on a pizza, some things just aren't meant to go together. In this case, these two things are PSSR and ray tracing. Ray tracing in GT7 has always been garbage, but when you sprinkle PSSR on top, it's a whole new level of crap. Just look at these wheels, they're a fuzzy abomination with PSSR. And don't be fooled, even in the menu if you have prioritize FPS selected, when you also select PSSR, PD are going to shove some ray tracing in there too because why not? But what if we turn off PSSR and just have ray tracing? It's better, but still crawling like some alien liquid metal. The only real solution is to turn off PSSR and to also select prioritize FPS. It seems strange to have to turn off visual effects to get better image quality, but here we are. But this is all in the menus. What about racing? Personally, I bought the PS5 Pro because I wanted 120 FPS racing with a better draw distance, or to be a little more accurate, less aggressive level of detail settings. I hate staring off into the distance trying to pick my braking point while having shadows pop in or fences just magically build themselves in the corner of my eye. Though I sometimes have fun playing with the Countach I see, just watching the rear magically build itself. The PS5 Pro can eliminate all of this though, so has it? Ha, of course not. This is the 120Hz prioritized ray tracing resolution mode that I used to play in the OG PS5, but now I've got the amazing power of PSSR on PS5 Pro. Watch the shadow draw in on this grandstand, identical on PS5 and Pro. And as we let the race run on, it gets a little out of sync as I have a different race in both, but watch the shadow on this bridge draw on the Pro screen to the right, and then watch the same thing happen on the stock PS5. What have I paid for here? Where is this extra power going? To be honest, it's hard to tell. Let's run through all the modes. There is a ton of them, so I'll try to make this quick. On the left will be the OG PS5, and on the right is the Pro. This is a comparison with PSSR and all the bells and whistles. I'll just shut up and let you take it in. First up is the 60Hz ray tracing. What about 60Hz frame rate mode? Next up we have some 120Hz ray tracing. And finally, here is 120Hz frame rate mode. Just stunning differences, right? This Pro upgrade is truly one of the upgrades GT7 has had. I think here and there you can notice some slight difference in resolution, but apart from that I can't see much has changed. Of course, there are always those who are going to tell you it's changed.
The more I realise, I think the lighting is a step up. Nothing, nothing outrageously game-changing, but I do think there is an improvement there.
Or maybe it hasn't changed.
Everything there is the same as well. And as we zoom in, you can see that, well, in fact it's hard to see the difference.
Oh, I can see the difference. You've used the wrong game mode for your PS5 Pro footage. It might look garbage sometimes, but it's never lower resolution like you are showing. On the latter, he's used the wrong footage. No big deal, we all make mistakes. But I wanted to put the former to the test. This footage is from before the Pro patch went live, so this is a direct comparison of what Super GT was talking about, and as you can see, they're both absolutely identical. Now, I won't roast Super GT because if you're a human, then you make mistakes like this. It's called a cognitive bias, in this case, a confirmation bias. This is where you have an opinion about something before you experience it, and then your brain tricks you into thinking your experiences match your opinion, even if it doesn't. I did this myself in my iRacing video where, even though I knew I was driving a low-powered, rear-wheel drive car, after noticing it had FF in its name, and after reading someone online also say it was a front-wheel drive car, I thought, oh, I'm wrong, and I ended up saying this. It's a little understeery, sure, but what do you expect from a front-wheel drive car? This is why I like to show instead of tell, and since I can't show you frames per second numbers any other way, here is some janky footage filming straight off my TV. Pay close attention to this box here. It says VRR information, but that number there is the frame rate. What is important to know here is the VRR window, which the PS5 tells me is 48 to 120 Hz. The issue is that the actual frame rate might be lower than 48 or higher than 120. And when that happens, the TV is going to show 118 or 59 Hz, the max for each mode. I'm slowing this down to show you how the frame rate number jumps around. In real life, this is a bit of a slideshow, and you can really see the PS5 struggle. And you will notice that the FPS briefly showing something like 47, but then it will jump back to 59. Usually in these instances, it means that the FPS has dropped so low that it's outside of the VRR window. So most of the time in this clip, when it's saying 59 Hz, it's actually well below 46 frames per second. So let's see the FPS numbers. The Pro has to be doing something because we know it's not giving us any better visuals. First up is the benchmark PS5 in 60Hz ray tracing mode. This is gameplay, of course, as the replays turn on other effects and are not representative of gameplay. I'll put the full clips up on the Formula Digital Sprints channel, but for now you can see that in gameplay the 60Hz RT mode is quite solid. Replays though, they're a completely different story and have massive dips. Pro 60Hz RT mode is of course fairly solid in gameplay, but still suffers dips in the replays with either PSSR on or off. .60Hz frames per second mode next, and the OG PS5 is generally solid in gameplay but with huge dips in the replays. Same story. The Pro is of course solid here in gameplay with the same, not quite as big dips in the replays. It's the 120Hz modes that I was really interested in. The 120Hz frames per second mode on PS5 is dipping into the 90s, which honestly is pretty great, but still has the replay dipping so low it goes out of the VRR window. On Pro, Well, this is quite bizarre because I'm seeing dips into the 80s, worse than the OG PS5. How is that even possible? I thought, well, that was just with PSSR, which might be turning on RT in races. So without it, it's going to be a lock. But no, even with PSSR off, we're still dangerously close to dipping into the 80s. What the hell? And the replays? Well, at least PSSR off versions managed to get mostly to the VIR window. With that disappointment, there is still one mode left to test, the mode I actually play in, 120Hz ray tracing. On the OG PS5 in gameplay, we are just above 60 frames per second in these conditions. Replays though are still dipping out of that VRR range. The Pro with PSSR is deep into the 70s, which is better than the 60s, but come on, this isn't what I paid for. And replays? Ha, no. Turning PSSR off though is a lot better, mostly in the mid-80s. Replays though, still a nightmare. So, where does that leave us? What the PS5 Pro means for me is that I've gone from the left hand of the screen to the right. There's a bump to detail here, so slight that on YouTube, I'm not sure if you can even see it. And the frame rate too? Meh, whatever. What I really wanted was for the level of detail at a distance to be rock solid. And FYI, did you know that the level of detail changes between bumper cam and all other views? Check this out. Watch this fence. Watch it appear and disappear depending on whether I'm in bumper cam or not. Super strange stuff. I was hoping that I would never see things just magically appear with the Pro, but alas, this just isn't the case. The level of detail and draw distance is identical no matter what PS5 you are on. So this patch then, it's one hell of a letdown, let's be clear about that. It's difficult to believe that in one mode I saw even worse FPS on the Pro than on the OG PS5. I do hear that there are improvements to PlayStation VR support, so check out other videos from other YouTubers on that front. But for me, racing in flat, I can't help but feel that there was so much more left on the table.